Every time I go to record one of these videos, I feel tears come to my eyes. I don't even really know what there is to say, what might come out of me. But I often find the message, whatever it is as much for me as it is for anyone else. And this really compels me to keep sharing. And with sharing, there seems to be a deeper connection. It sort of erodes this personal nature of life, of experience. I guess that's where the connection really forms. It's when we see our experiences as personal in nature. That everything seems to just be happening through us, for the conduit, for the life energy, an expression of life itself. And that life has its own course that it wants to happen. It has nothing to do with us personally, but rather what the whole wants. So looking at things on a personal scale, it's hard to decipher what the meaning is of anything. And it leaves many of us wondering and feeling cheated by life. It's inherently unfair. Yet when we look at the totality, something about it just resonates with our heart. We know it, but we don't know how we know it or why we know it. Sometimes we don't even want to know it, because losing our story can be tremendously scary. Who are we without our story? If life isn't inherently unfair, and I've been going around saying this for years and years and years, what happens? Does it invalidate my entire existence? These are the kind of thoughts the mind will create, leading us to doubt, to move back into that cage that we put ourselves in, feeling constrained by the world instead of part of it, the creator of it in a way. It's as if there's this one beaming ray of light. This is the image I keep getting. And it's splintered into all these little parts, all these individual bodies. And it's radiating from there. It's the same light, but coming through all these different filters, all these different forms, all these different people. It's kind of like one of those kaleidoscopes, where you look at it and your eye is like the beaming ray or the source of it all, but then it's being splintered off to create all these individual images and patterns, which on their own don't make any sense. Maybe there is some pattern to it, but we can spend hours and hours, lifetimes, going through trying to understand, create meaning to things. But if we really follow our mind, we see even the meaning that we attach to an event can change over time. It may mean one thing to us in one moment when it happens, and then years later we see it in a whole new light. It's the same story, but with a new meaning, seen through a new lens. It happens within us through a lifetime with our story, and it happens between us, each human being witnessing the seeming same thing, yet it appearing totally differently. Each one with their own spin based on their perception, which has been shaped by their conditioning, their very unique way of seeing the world, of experiencing the world. Seeing this really helped me, anyway, depersonalize and let go of the judgments and the comparisons. Because we can see that everything is a unique divine expression. How can anything ever be compared to anything else again? It's one of a kind. It's spirit wanting to express in all these different ways. And we need all these ways in order to have any sort of dynamic experience. Because experience is all based on contrast. We need to experience one to experience the other, to be able to recognize it. To experience hot, we have to know cold. To experience sad, we have to know glad. To experience wealth, we have to know poverty. To experience success, we have to know failure. None of these concepts have any meaning on their own, but only when they're contrasted with one or another. But really, they're two sides of the same coin. They're different sides, different opposite ends of the same thing. We spend so much of our lives complaining about these contrasts, wanting it to only be one way, to only be positive experiences, to only be success, to only be happiness, to be safe and secure. But the mind will never let us have that. If we're living in the space of the mind is constantly looking for contrast. So looking for a story. To be in a state of constancy, permanence, is really quite boring for the mind. The mind doesn't want to go there. It doesn't want to be content. We'll do everything to keep us restless and discontent, constantly searching for more, for better, thinking that its attempts to seek it out will bring this permanent state of bliss, yet it constantly eludes us. We see evidence of it all around us and in our own experience, but we just never stop and really look. The seeking is in the way. The seeking is believing in a mind that's always trying to create a story, that's always searching for contentment in the future, that really doesn't want to be content. Because to be content is to let go of the story, to let go of any criticisms, any complaints, any judgments about what is. And it is so hard. It's impossible to do that when we're in the mind. If we just watch the mind, watch how it works in other people as well as in ourselves, we see that it's always contrasting. anything we really talk about, to be able to rate it in any way, it's being contrasted with something else. To say this is a good person, we're rating them against other people. To say this is a good experience, we're rating this experience against another experience. To say this is successful, we're comparing this achievement with other achievements. Or this is happiness, we're comparing this state with other states. Our stories are all of the past or the future. When we're truly present with what is, there's very little to be said. Because no longer do those contrasts, those comparisons and judgments hold any truth to them. When everything is a unique expression, a unique state, a unique experience, a unique person, a unique form, when the mind is no longer restless, looking to be elsewhere than where it is, everything falls away. There's very little to be said. But there's a recognition in the heart that there's a truth there. And I guess it is up to us to continually come back into that heart space, to remember that truth that we sense is there intuitively, and to keep coming back despite all the stories of the mind which will convince us happiness exists everywhere else but here. It's not a one-time fix. It's a constant awareness, a watching of the mind and how it takes us out of this. And the more we see it, the less we actually have to do to try to change anything. We don't have to try to get rid of our patterns or try to be a better person or try at anything. We can see how the trying is another attempt to escape this. And when the trying falls away, we're not trying to be a better person, we're not trying to do any of these things. We just watch and see and observe the patterns of the mind. Insights may come, recognitions may be there. And in the seeing of it all, the patterns just sort of dissolve on their own. We don't even need to go back into the mind to try to fix what we see. We may see these dysfunctions, see the patterns and all the suffering that the mind is creating. But we also see the limitations of trying to address that suffering by thinking about it. So those thoughts fall away too. The thoughts of the past, the thoughts of the future, all based on comparisons, fear mostly, what could be, should be, maybe, projecting a reality of what we want to happen on what is, and using what is as a tool to get somewhere else. To a place that we feel is better. But again, better is another concept. It's a comparison. And whenever we're comparing, we're never totally immersed in what is. It's funny, the more aware we become too, the more we see that even not only the critical parts fall away, but the need for affirmation falls away too. All this looking for approval and validation, wanting to be patted on the back and congratulated for all our hard work, being seen as special, that is seen as false too, because we see that as a projection the other person is putting on us. They're having an experience, maybe in our presence, and they attribute it to us, when really they're only able to see us through their own lens. They're reflecting on their own experience. And it doesn't mean that any validation or affirmation or positive comments have no meaning or significance to you anymore. They do. It's just this special quality that they once had falls away. You no longer need it as a crutch to make you feel good, lovable, worthy, enough. That too is just as it is. I found too that sometimes it's not so much the words that the other person is saying about me, but that are taken out to boost me up in any way, but more as a recognition of the embodiment of what I'm living now. The presence that's able to shine through when all these stories and all these comparisons and judgments falls away. It's a recognition of the experience now. Because sometimes these patterns, these beliefs and conditionings and judgments fall away so slowly that we don't even really recognize that they've fallen away. We just feel more spacious and free, content, relaxed. But we don't necessarily see why we're feeling that way or what has fallen away. We just know there's a different state that's being present. That was my experience anyway. Things fell away, but I didn't really know what things it were. But I just knew that there was a much more spacious presence available within me that I could sense and other people could sense. I could sense even the most in my interactions with other people. There was a mutual sensing of this acceptance, this accepting presence that was becoming more and more bodied within. And that's why it really truly is the gift. It feels like it's selfish to go in to spend all this time looking, watching our thoughts and our patterns, but really it's the best gift that we can give. Because when we're embodied in our space, our spacious presence, we're able to give it as a gift freely in all our interactions and allow other people to recognize it within themselves. They may not consciously recognize it, but there's a sense within. There's a sense that something's different, more spacious and free. And sometimes it can actually scare people away because there's even a sense that it can be threatening in some way. Because when your heart and mind are truly open, it's like all of the stories that keep you bound are seen. When you become transparent, everyone else becomes transparent. can see through the patterns. And the ego becomes very threatened by that because it doesn't want to see the fallacy of what it is believing, the suffering it is imposing upon itself. There's really no one else or nothing else to blame for our suffering but a belief in our thoughts. So many of us are in a cage and feel like the world put us in this cage and we have to stay in this cage to be good, well-trained people. When in reality, we put ourselves in the cage. Slowly over time, the outside world contributes to reinforces the beliefs that we think and shapes them. But we're sitting in this cage with the key all along. We have the key to let ourselves out. And as we open that door and walk through all those fears that we believe kept us bound, we see they had no inherent reality. They were illusions. And sometimes I see this by comparing different perspectives. Some people have absolutely no fear of public speaking or sharing themselves in very profound, deep ways, whereas other people feel completely insecure in this area. Some people have a natural knack for money and making money and knowing how to invest money, and other people have no clue. It's not that some people are inherently better than other people. It just depends on the thoughts that we're thinking, that we're choosing to believe in. There are factors that are going to limit us and shape our experience. We're not all meant to live the same life with the same beliefs, have the same successes. But because we see that certain people think different things and have different experiences, some people fear some things and other people never fear them. And it's like their mind hasn't even gone there. They don't even recognize that it's possible to have these fears, whereas other people could be bound by them their whole life. It's a belief that's like it's right in front of our face. And when we look through the world, we're seeing that belief played out everywhere. So as we open the cage and start walking out, there's going to be many fears, in all likelihood, that we walk through. And it can be extremely terrifying. Things start falling away. Ambition starts going. We wonder what the hell we're doing. We've made some big mistake. No longer are we the person that we thought we were. We can even see through all our own patterns. All that we were doing that we thought was loving was really out of obligation and trying to uphold our own image as a loving person. Or all our acts of kindness were again to affirm our belief that we're nice, good people. So much of our actions are shaped by the image that we want to portray to the world. And when we see that we do this, and we see how it's a subtle form of manipulation, and how we're constantly in a state of comparison of ourselves to others, feeling like our We have to constantly uphold this image. We see how much effort is required to do it. Just in that seeing, it all starts to fall away. It's like we can't do it anymore. It's too much work. It doesn't feel real. We can see the inherent selfishness in being unconscious, which is opposite to what the mind, the ego, will have us believe. And in our freedom, as we walk out of that cage, we discover that the peace, the joy, the happiness is really what underlies everything. Because to have this dynamic experience and to be able to know duality in this world, the extreme opposites of things, it's all to create this very dynamic experience. It's all part of the human experience. There's nothing inherently wrong or bad about any of it. It's the mind that tells us that. We love to experience. And when we give ourselves full permission to be with whatever ever feeling arises, and those feelings will arise despite whatever we may want to happen or think should happen, we don't have much control over how we're feeling. We can deny it or suppress it, but it still remains. And when we give ourselves permission to really go into that feeling and allow ourselves to be sad if we're sad, grieve if we're mourning the loss of something or someone, be totally angry, feel that betrayal through every cell of our body, feel that desire through every cell of our body. We love it. It seems so ironic, but we love it. The heart instantly recognizes it. It just feels so good to allow ourselves to feel whatever we're feeling. It brings us a paradoxical happiness that we think has to look a certain way. We're conditioned to believe has to look a certain way. But when the heart and mind open, we see that happiness is what underlies all experience when we're not judging the experience, comparing the experience with what we think should or could be. We find too that we're able to be content with where we are. All the striving to be elsewhere, we're missing all of the beauty, the awe, the wonder of everything that's happening around us, the fullness of the experience. And that's what we want, to fully experience life, to experience all the feelings of life, to experience all the sensations of life, to be fully alive. And when we give ourselves permission to do that, when we constantly practice coming into the heart, following the inspiration, noticing the patterns of the mind, walking through those fears, we also see that peace and contentment exist there too. And that's more of the kind of happiness that we stumble upon. It's not this joyful, elated, excited happiness, although that may appear. It's more of a constant, grounded peacefulness. Everything that we do feels like it's flowing. We're enjoying everything that we're doing. We're not in constant resistance to what is, looking for something else. We can see the beauty in whatever appears. whatever people appear, whatever feelings arise, whatever circumstances come, we can see that this too is a gift, a totally unique experience that's only ever asking us to experience it. It's as if life, of course, we are an expression of life itself, but it's as if there's a hand just waiting with its palm up, asking us to experience yourself fully. That's all. It's just this, just now, just as you are. That's it. The whole purpose of life. To allow the unique expression that wants to come through you to come through you, to shine. To experience fully every emotion, every experience, every circumstance. And when we really understand that, there's nowhere else to go. We remain in the now, in the present. We see that every attempt to go anywhere else is just taking out of the mystery of what is. It's a belief that our happiness exists outside of this experience. That a different experience will be a better experience. But the whole concept again of better is another illusion. No matter how far we get and how much we achieve, it's always just this. Just ourselves, with our same patterns, with our same feelings. This. We even see it in celebrities, despite all the successes and fame and fortune, whatever they achieve. There's still so many that are unhappy, that have addictions, commit suicide. No matter what the our external world may appear as, it will never give us the happiness that we seek. And the happiness that we seek is to fully experience what is. The simplest invitation there could ever be. Yet life changing.